Welcome to the Wake Before the Day podcast with my parents, Clark and Bobby. We're excited to talk about the Bible and the Holy Spirit adventures. Thanks for listening.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the studio. We're excited to study Genesis chapter 34 with you today. And just a heads up, this is one of the more vile and violent chapters of Genesis, but we don't want to shy away from it.
Nope.
We want to dig deep and figure out, God, why did this happen? What's to be learned from it? And how does this fit in the grander story of God?
Yep.
So you want to start by reading just the intro, at least, to the first couple of verses?
Let's do it. Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, had born to Jacob, went out to visit the women of the land. When Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, the ruler of the area, saw her, he took her and violated her. His heart was drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob. He loved the young woman and spoke tenderly to her. And Shechem said to his father Hamor, "Get me this girl as my wife." When Jacob heard that his daughter Dinah had been defiled, his sons were in the fields with his livestock. So he did nothing about it until they came home. Then Shechem's father Hamor went out to talk to Jacob. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons had come in from the fields as soon as they heard what had happened. They were shocked and furious because Shechem had done an outrageous thing in Israel by sleeping with Jacob's daughter, a thing that should not be done.
So I think we can all agree that Shechem's actions were evil and vile.
Yes.
They were wrong back then. They're wrong today. Just before we hit record and started going, you and I were talking about how this is one of many instances in Genesis alone where
Yes.
there's been like vile violations of people,
just
whether
sexual
it's
perversion.
inter-family or it's outer family to inter-family, whatever. Now, when it comes to like what's going on in Shechem's head, the scripture is clear that he really wanted to be with her. He, however, just went about it the completely wrong way.
Yeah.
Now, in the ancient Near East, almost always they were prearranged marriages where
Right.
parents would get together and go, hey, how can we benefit from our partnership here,
Union.
our union? And you're at the mercy of your parents. In order to get out of a prearranged marriage, a couple of things could happen. One, there could be just the youth going and having a consensual relations
Sure.
and them basically saying like, I'm not going to go with that person. I want to go with this person, and we're jumping the gun, and we're going to make it happen so that their record is quote unquote tarnished. The other side of the coin would just be if there is something that's not consensual, which it seems to
What we see
happen here,
Yeah.
where there's a violation that occurs and someone's taken advantage of. And I don't like to use these words, but how the people of this time would have viewed them is you have a tarnished record or your damaged goods, and then the prearranged marriage would likely be off.
Right.
So if you try to get your head in Shechem's head, like what was this guy thinking? He was
Right.
not thinking with his brain. You know, he's thinking, this is what my body wants.
Yeah.
I find her pretty.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do. So in the eyes of the family, looking for a spouse, this would have showed up on the record. It's still vile and wrong. But the one that gets me is Jacob's response.
Yeah, or his like lack of response. That's
Yeah.
one of the things like in here that what should stand out right away. Like as this happens and he hears about it, he doesn't do anything. Even when Jacob's sons come and they're kind of on the scene and we're going to hear more about how this transpires that is
Yeah.
unhelpful, but they seem like more empathetic and concerned right away.
Yeah.
And it's confusing because while you're talking about Shechem and what's going on in his mind, for him to completely act in the flesh and in sin and overtake her in the situation, what's going on in Jacob's mind? You know, he is the patriarch. He's the one who, you know, Dinah really, like her honor, like it's unto him. Like he's the one overseeing and
Protecting, providing.
and
Yeah.
providing. So, you know, where's he at? And then we'll dive into that, and then we're also gonna dive into the sons and how their response, even though it's initially, you know, it's urgent and it's concerning, it ends up being unhelpful and is actually sinful.
Yeah.
You know, in the way they respond too.
Yeah. Let's pick it back up in verse 8. It says, But Hamor said to them, My son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter. Please give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us. Give us your daughters and take our daughters for yourselves. You can settle among us. The land is open to you. Live in it, trade in it, acquire property in it. Then Shechem said to Dinah's father and brothers, let me find favor in your eyes, and I will give you whatever you ask. Make the price for the bride and the gift I am about to bring you as great as you'd like, and I'll pay whatever you ask of me. Only give me the young woman as my wife, said Shechem.
So we're headed toward marriage. Like, that's the conversation
That's what
here.
they want.
That's what
Yeah.
they want to head toward, but it's completely in the wrong way.
Correct.
You know, now Shechem and Jacob, or Hamor and Jacob, are having this conversation, but that should have happened way before anything else happened. And so it's almost like this, like bartering, you know, like, oh, well, we'll give you this, you know, we just want her. And there's this like infatuation with Dinah that's like totally overtaken.
On Shechem's part, yeah.
Yes, that's totally overtaken Shechem. And then Shechem's dad, Hamor, is 100% thinking about the economic opportunity that's at play here.
Yeah.
Because of Jacob's wealth and his prosperity. And then also, you know, other places in the Bible it said, you know, like Jacob and Laban, like Laban could see that the Lord had been there. And so there's a reputation here. And it's good to understand when they're talking about like the bride price.
Correct.
This is not just, explain that to us. This is not just like, hey, we're going to pay you off.
Yeah, it's not like you're buying cattle from someone
Yes.
or like some merchandise. It actually is an honorable way acknowledging that the bride's family is about to quote unquote lose a vital part of their family, and they're trying to provide for them to still make ends meet now that that person will no longer be there, but will be with bridegroom's family.
Right.
So don't think of it as like a woman is just goods to be
Traded goods,
exchanged, which still women are not treated as they should be in the Bible, but that was the thought behind it at least. Now, when you take a step back though, and you look at this chapter within the greater story of God, this whole time God has given them clear instructions saying, do not marry outside of God's family and God's people. And the reason why is because God knows that when people marry other people who are not worshiping God,
Right.
idolatry sets in, the hearts of God's men and women will be pulled away from worship of Yahweh alone, and it doesn't end well. And so one could argue that the covenant promise is in jeopardy here.
Sure.
Because God promised Abraham the world's going to be blessed through his line, marry through God's people. The same thing with Isaac. The same thing with Jacob. And now you have the Hivites coming out saying, no, have our land, intermarry with us. Take our daughters, we'll take your daughters, we'll both prosper. And this is threatening the promise that was given even all the way back to Adam, where a Messiah is going to come from this family line to defeat evil. So the story's not done. Jacob, who had been deceitful on many occasions in this book, which we've talked about, is passive here. However, his sons are not. His sons are going to take matters into their own hands, and like their daddy, they act deceitfully.
Yeah.
They're tricky. You want to read the next couple of verses?
Because their sister Dinah had been defiled, Jacob's sons replied deceitfully as they spoke to Shechem and his father Hamor. So they have a plan. There's a plan already in place. They said to them, we can't do such a thing. We can't give our sister to a man who is not circumcised. That would be a disgrace to us. We will enter into an agreement with you on only one condition, that you become like us, circumcising all of your males. Then we will give you our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves. We'll settle among you and become one people with you. But if you will not agree to be circumcised, we will take our sister and go. Again, question that should be kind of lingering in your head is, where is Jacob?
Dude's
and
gone.
why are these brothers initiating this deal and this conversation? There's nothing about him in those verses. And it's one of those things, too, where they're taking something that's been good, this gift of circumcision to God's people, and they're manipulating it into some kind of deal to get their way. They have a plan. We don't know the plan yet, and you do if you've read all of the chapter today. But they're not playing all the cards. They're saying, hey, you know, if you guys do this, then you won't be like foreigners. You will belong to us. And then, because this has happened. This has happened already in the Old Testament. You know, it wasn't... it was baby boys on the eighth day. But when male converts, when they came into the family of God, then they assimilated fully into the culture. And so that's what they're saying. You guys can do that. Okay. Yeah, be circumcised.
And you see this not only in Genesis, you see this all the way through Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. There are passages that are often quoted when it looks like God's people leave Egypt and they bring Egyptians with them. They bring people who are slaves from other nations with them. And so
Right.
people wonder, like, how does this work? Like, can like these immigrants be part of God's people? And all throughout the Bible, God's like, yes. He's like, remember that you were once immigrants, enslaved and alienated in Egypt, and I've taken you out. What the Bible makes clear here, though, is that you must assimilate 100% to the ways of God, or you cannot be part of the people.
Yeah.
So circumcision, absolutely. Eventually, Sabbath keeping, absolutely.
Yeah.
Following the rest of the Mosaic law that eventually comes, absolutely. So it didn't matter in time what tribe you were from or what nation you were from. You could come be part of God's community. You just needed to be obedient to God. And now verses 18 and 20, it kind of seems like the proposal is good. Hamor and Shechem then go back to their city to tell the men what the plan is. I wonder if these guys were like, what? So these men are friendly toward us, they said. Let them live in our land, trade in it. The land has plenty of room for them. We can marry their daughters. They can marry ours. When the men will agree to live with us as one people, only on the condition that our males be circumcised as they themselves are. Won't their livestock, their property, and all their animals become ours? So let us agree to their terms, and they'll settle among us. And all the men went out of the city, agreed with Hamor and his son Shechem, and every male in that city was circumcised. Again, Hamor and Shechem are only thinking about themselves. They see this as a way to get ahead. Shechem is infatuated with Dinah. Hamor is thinking economic prosperity. They're focused on growing their bank account, their livestock, their property. But there's a twist coming.
This is verse 25. 3 days later, while all of them were still in pain, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, like her full brothers, born of Leah, took their swords and attacked the unsuspecting city, killing every male. They put Hamor and his son Shechem to the sword and took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. The sons of Jacob came upon the dead bodies and looted the city where the sister had been defiled. They seized their flocks, herds, and donkeys, and everything else in their city and out of the fields. They carried off their wealth and all their women and children, taking them as plunder, everything in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon, so now Jacob's on the scene, said to Simeon and Levi, you have brought trouble on me by making me obnoxious to the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the people living in the land. We are few in number, and if they join forces against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed.
So you gotta unpack this, because earlier we asked the question, where is Jacob and why isn't he stepping in and defending the honor of his daughter? And he just revealed his cards right here. He's scared of everybody else around him. His daughter got harmed, but he doesn't want to become a nuisance to the surrounding nations. And so we're asking, where are you at, dude? And Dinah's initially harmed. He's quiet because he doesn't want to ruffle the feathers and make waves in the community. He's selfish. He's self-centered. He's unwilling to stand up for what's right because it was uncomfortable, inconvenient, and risky for him. Another odd verse is verse 26. It says, Dinah was kept at Shechem's house. We don't know why. We don't know why she was allowed to stay there. For all we know, the marriage had not taken place. She was harmed and violated. But why didn't Jacob get his daughter and bring her home?
Initially, why wasn't that happening?
We don't know. Verse 29 tells us that Simeon and Levi then come on, carry off the plunder, the women and the children. And there's no mention of the women and children later on in the story. So it's assumed that these people were absorbed into Jacob's greater tribe and then were provided for and protected. So what's wild about this, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Simeon, Levi, these are going to be two of the 12 tribes. We hear about their names later on throughout the scriptures. These are people that you want to cheer for, you want to root for, you want to succeed. And then you read stuff like this and you're like, this is tough. And so just like Jacob, we're works in progress. He just had his name changed. Israel, Jacob, you struggle with men, you struggle with God, you were a deceiver and a heel grasper, now you're redeemed. He was, but he's still a work in progress. And the same is true with Simeon and Levi here. In verse 31, this is how the chapter ends. It says, but they replied, should he have treated our sister like a prostitute? So when you read this, the common thought is the narrator is taking the side of the brother's actions here, not Jacob, because the narrator gives them the last word in this story.
I think that before we continue to move on, I think that just speaks to, so the narrator who, wrote Genesis is giving them the last word, and that kind of can speak to how, like, neither of these are good. Neither of these actions, like, that took place, it's like sin only begets greater sin. And still, there's something to be said about the passivity of a patriarch.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about being a work in progress, and that's so true. What came to my mind, though, before we move on to the brothers, was reading about Pete Scorsese's Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And you're kind of seeing that. So if you take some of the themes and thoughts from that text, he's essentially talking about how when we grow in spiritual maturity, it has to be directly linked with emotional maturity. And so a lot of our emotional maturity in our relationships, they're horizontal.
Yep.
They're the people that are in our lives. They're the people that are in our houses. They're our family. They're the people that are under us potentially.
Yeah.
And so you see that where, I mean, Jacob's cards are revealed where he says, I'm obnoxious now to all of these people, the Canaanites. So in Jacob's brain, I just wonder, this is a thought, you know, as you're reading your Bible, just to sift through. I wonder, was Jacob prioritizing Yahweh? Was he prioritizing his immediate household? Or was he prioritizing what other people outside of his household thought of him?
Yeah.
The answer is quite clear.
Yeah.
So this is another great place to stop. And, you know, we're talking about being works in progress, and that's a good, accurate word. And how are we living that out? Where it's like, okay, Lord, you know, we have things to learn from Jacob in this text, even though he doesn't get the last word, even though he actually, I'll leave us with this. One of our favorite songs is a song from Shylin, and he has a great album that's for kids. And he says, you know, David's not a hero, Moses is not a hero, Jacob's not a hero, it's only Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that's another huge thing to understand, is how all the Bible points to Jesus, which is what these conversations with the sons actually get at.
Yeah.
Because they end up being, so these sons, Simeon and Levi,
Yeah.
their fuel and their zeal for justice, even though here it's used for vengeance, later on in the Bible in Exodus, it's actually used in obedience unto
Yeah.
the Lord. And so their line becomes set apart for the Lord
Yeah.
as they become priests.
Yes.
Sorry, do you want to jump in, or do you
Yeah.
want me to keep going?
No, I'll jump in. Yeah. What happens here is there's messy, evil things done. And one of the themes you see throughout all of the Bible
Yes.
is God redeeming it, working in and through it to bring about good.
Yeah.
So were Simeon and Levi justified in how they went about this? It could have been done better.
Right.
Did God use this to protect his covenantal promises? Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
God providentially is guiding this story, and we can't deny that. You see the same with Jesus' crucifixion, the whole mixture of you, wicked men, with the help of evil men,
Yeah.
killed Jesus on that cross, but it was all part of God's plan. You
Yeah.
see that in Acts. When it comes to now going back to Simeon and Levi,
Yeah.
and like their rules, if you fast forward to Exodus 32:26, Moses comes
Yeah.
down from Mount Sinai, and with the leadership of Aaron, the people had taken all the gold they probably got from their plundering of Egypt and made a golden calf and started worshiping it.
Right.
Moses is heated. He smashes the stone tablets, which had the 10 Commandments on them, and he
Just
cries
got these
out
things.
in verse 26, whoever is for Yahweh, come to me.
Come to me.
Whoever is for the Lord, come to me. He is angry. And then when he sees who steps forward, the instruction he's going to give them is, we're going to go around and kill everybody who wants to keep participating
Right.
in this pagan idolatry.
Yep.
We have to purify this and protect the holiness of God, because
Right.
we cannot allow them to be here, or they will pull the hearts of the nations away. And then what happens here is the tribe of Levi is
Right.
the one that steps up. The tribe of Levi says, which includes Aaron, like, hey, we're sorry for this.
Yeah.
We will help you. We want to keep the worship of God holy, pure, and sacred. So then Exodus 32:29, he says, okay, you have been set apart for the Lord today, for you were against your own brothers and your own sons, and he has blessed you today. So throughout the whole story of God, it's the Levites that become the high priests.
Right.
It's their job to essentially be the bodyguards of the tabernacle and the temple and to guard the covenant. They're protecting the Holy of Holies. They were teaching the law. They were offering sacrifices.
Right.
So it's through this line of convicted people that God actually uses them to teach Israel how to passionately and properly, for that time, worship God.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean that they go without consequences. Both Simeon and Levi end up receiving a curse from Jacob on his deathbed
Yeah.
at the very end of Genesis. Now, if you keep fast forwarding, you kind of hinted at Jesus a minute ago. When Jesus is ultimately called the greatest high priest in the New Testament, he's not compared to the tribe of Levi.
Yeah.
He's compared to Melchizedek, which we've already talked about, this high priest from Salem who's mysterious and receives worship, and Abraham gives him a tithe of 10%.
Comes from a line.
Like of kings that don't die, he had no birth and death. Like, what do we do with this? Jesus is compared to him, not
The Levites.
the Levites, because of this. And you go to Deuteronomy, again, God just makes it so clear. He's talking about the surrounding nations around God's people. He says, do not intermarry with them.
Yeah.
Do not give your daughters to their sons or take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your children away from following me to serve other gods. And the Lord's anger will burn against you and quickly destroy you.
Yeah. Another angle on this, when it talks about, do not intermarry, is when you flip the pages of the New Testament,
Yeah.
there's language that sounds like this, and what believers are clearly told in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. And so while the language is different, the theme remains the same. We want our most important value. So the most important thing that we can ever do within our marriage is to be people who are committed and living unto the Lord.
Yeah.
And so there's a word actually a few years ago that our family stepped into in the new year. I don't know if you remember this. So, in the new year, sometimes families will pray. It's based on this book about one word. And we've done that in the past where it's like, okay, Lord, what's one word that we could really focus on and try to live into and just give back to you? And there were multiple years in a row where the word that we felt like our family needed was the word consecration.
Yeah.
And that's actually what we're talking about here. So it's becoming more visible as the Lord continues to call Israel his own, and he leads them to a lifestyle that's set apart. And then it becomes more visible with the Mosaic Law when that comes to.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's how can we surrender ourselves, the things that we do, the things that we buy, the way that we spend our time and our money. How can we surrender and submit those things back to the Lord so that they are set apart? And so when it comes to what you value, when it comes to what you do on Sundays, when it comes to themes and priorities within your own family, that's going to be so much more difficult if you are partnered in your union with someone who is not equally yoked.
Yeah.
And so some of the language we talk about in couples class or in parenting class is how you want someone in a spouse that has a vision and a desire that's bigger than just your marriage and your family. Like, are you living pointing toward Jesus? Or are you living pointing towards yourself?
Yeah.
Or pointing towards your kids and your kingdom?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a visual or a picture. Do you want to talk more about 2 Corinthians?
Yeah, I think, just on that, and I'll end with the other verses from 2 Corinthians 6. Like, specific examples I bump into pastorally when people are unequally yoked is like the one parent is so sad they want to be at church on Sunday. They want to worship. They want their kids to come worship. And the other side of the relationship's like, nah, why are we doing this? Let's go to the game. Let's go to Disneyland. Let's sleep in. Let's whatever. How do you handle your money? Why would I give my money to the church when we can go buy the latest Jordans or buy another vacation for the family? Why would we give money to the Lord? There's a tension there. What do we eat and drink on Friday night, and how much do I eat and drink? Well, if you're unto the Lord, you have your answer. If you're not unto the Lord, you can do whatever you want. You see a tension there. Are we going to baptize the kids or not? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
There's tension there. So there are so many other more examples when it comes to this. The Bible is clear from the Old Testament to the New.
Yeah.
Be careful who you marry. And this is what we'll conclude with 2 Corinthians 6, 14 through 16. It says, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what does fellowship have in light with darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? And what agreement is there between the temple of God and idols? For we are the temple of the living God. I will add this too, just pastorally as we end. In other parts of these passages, it does give encouraging words to people who were unequally yoked and how they can be a blessing to their kids and to their unbelieving spouse, hoping to point them to Christ and one day for them to be saved themselves through their own repenting and believing.
Sure.
So there's ways to do this. And sometimes people aren't Christians. Then one of them becomes a Christian. And in time, our prayers that the other will eventually catch up. So there's so many different ways that this can go, but this is generally the instruction of God and the wisdom that he's given us.
Well, and the language, before we wrap up really quick, this is popping in my head, is like, don't date to be a missionary.
Yes.
Because like what we're talking here about is like people that are in the date, we're looking for a spouse or in the, and it's like, so that's an initial thing. Like, what's the most important thing? Well, if you're dating someone, it's to marry. And does this person know and love the Lord? You are not in a covenant if you are not married.
Yeah.
So then that's an easy answer.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not like, okay, hear my mom heart here, because now I'm old enough to say that. That's not to hurt feelings. That's just to encourage and convict. So thank you for listening. You guys, Genesis chapter 34, a lot to unpack. Thank you for not skipping over it. Thank you for doing it with us. It's a joy. Come back tomorrow. Genesis 35 is next.
Here we
God
go.
bless you.
See ya.
The Lord bless you and keep you. Don't make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give him his peace. Have a great day.